Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 213 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have a small crew this week. Krim was away at GPLA this weekend. He is on a plane right now, I think, while we're recording, so no Krim this week, but, of course, like every week, I'm joined by the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. What's up, Richard?
Hey, Seth, what's going on? And correction, Krim was at MagicFest LA, Seth. MagicFest LA. Although he was in the Grand Prix Los Angeles as well.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that correction. I'm going to do that wrong for probably the rest of the year. So get used to it.
Yep. Go back to your pro tours. And he was at the Mythic MagicFest playing some Mythic card games.
I mean, I think technically he was at the GP, but that was also at the Magic Fest, so I don't know. It's too complicated for my small brain to keep up with. Too many mythics for me.
Yeah, I don't know how he did actually. Did he like 03 scrub out and play at Magic Fest, or did he like make it all the way to like top 16 or something? We don't know. We'll find out next week.
I will say, as I was watching coverage, I did see a Krim deck tech, so that was cool. He got with Pleasant Kenobi doing the deck techs, talked a little bit about his modern deck and what he was playing, so that was cool. But I don't think he didn't make the top 8, and I didn't see him on camera as I was watching, so I'm assuming he did not super good, but he did get a deck tech, which is sweet.
Yes, all those times he didn't strip mine Vince on Commander Clash paid off.
Yes. So anyway, the plan for today, we had a couple of topics to talk about. First off, we had a big product announcement on Thursday with Modern Horizons, along with a couple of spoilers cards. So we're going to start off by talking everything Modern Horizons. Then we wanted to talk about GPLA, Modern, and also they had a Pauper MCQ, which is a Mythic Championship / Pro Tour qualifier. So first time in paper that people could qualify for a Mythic Championship playing Pauper, which was also on coverage, which was kind of cool. So we wanted to talk about that. And then, of course, Fish Mail we will get to at the end of our episode. So anyway, before we jump into it, a reminder that the sponsor of the show today is SpikesAcademy.com, and Spikes Academy actually today, March 4th, is launching a new course, The Art of Sideboarding with Seth Mansfeld, and the first 200 people that buy the course can get 15% off if they use the code SIDEBOARDING. So, thank you to Spikes Academy for their support, and if you want to check out this sweet new course for 15% off, check out The Art of Sideboarding with Seth Mansfeld, code SIDEBOARDING. So thanks again to them. Anyway, with our sponsorship stuff out of the way today, let's talk a little bit about Modern Horizon. So, Richard, before we talk about the 2 spoiler cards we got, what is Modern Horizons for people that may not have heard yet somehow?
All right, you ready for this? We have a new set, and this set brings cards to Modern, skipping Standard. And it features 249 new to Modern cards. So either they are brand new cards, 2 of which we'll discuss today, or they're cards that were not previously available in Modern, but now reprinted into Modern. So Seth, we've been talking for like years, I think at this point, about a set where you skip Standard and just inject things randomly into Modern. And now we have it, 249 new cards coming to Modern June 14th. So later on this year.
I am so hyped. This is something that I personally have been asking for a few years now. And there's so many sweet old cards in Legacy that are cards that I think would be really fun and probably pretty good in Modern that are just too old or weird or powerful, some combination of those things to show up in Standard. So I am really hyped for this set. I think, based on watching the live stream, it sounds like we're going to get mostly new cards. It sounds like that's kind of how it's weighted, is primarily new cards, but also some reprints. Regardless, it's going to be super exciting, and I'm really hyped to see what this does to the Modern format. We talk about Modern needing shakeups now and then for Pro Tours and whatnot, and this seems like the kind of thing that will shake up Modern, possibly even more than a banning or an unbanning, just getting so many new, potentially powerful cards. Because with a Standard set, what do you get? 2 cards, 5 cards, maybe 10 cards in an insane set that even show up in Modern at all. With this set, I have really high hopes that we're going to see a lot more Modern playable cards than we would in a typical set.
Yeah, and looking at the two cards, which you're going to talk about in 2 seconds, the power level is being pumped up. If I was a legacy player, I would be worried that everyone would just migrate to modern because it feels like they're about to juice up the power level in modern. And this is the new place to play when you have, when you want to play old cards. And it'll be interesting to see if they print cards that are kind of just strong overall, like let's say Fatal Push, or they start making weird cards to bring up kind of the tier 3 and tier 4 archetypes. Like, can you imagine they just add like a weird merfolk or something to, juice up the power level of the fish deck, or, whatever, things like that, right? Or do they just bring in more Thought Seizes, more Fatal Pushes, more Lightning Bolts? So it'll be very interesting to see how they do it. But it does look spicy. It does look like modern is about to get much more powerful and closer to legacy in terms of power level.
So the set itself, I want to hear your thoughts on this because it's kind of unique and weird. So from what we have gathered, the set is going to be booster boxes that are 36 packs. So similar to a standard set in that way. However, wholesale, based on what we're seeing from some LGSs talking about what they have to pay from distributors, is like $160 some, which means it's kind of like master set pricing, but with 36 packs and presumably not a foil in every pack. What do you think of this model, Richard, of like more packs in the box, but still a higher price tag, or a master set like price tag?
But there's no MSRP, Seth. It could be anything. I don't know. It's just gonna sell for whatever people pay for it, right? So if there are lots of good cards, expect the price to be high. If the cards are not so good and they're so, expect iconic masters, right? Like I don't know what to say. And it's unlimited print run, if I recall correctly, right, Seth? This is not a limited edition thing, so expect it to be priced according to how good the cards are.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the cards are like, and how in demand they are. It's interesting also that there is going to be a pre-release for this set, and there's also going to be a buy-a-box promo for this set, similar to a standard set. Pre-release is draft rather than sealed, which is kind of unique. I'm not really sure exactly why that was a choice, but it's cool. And the promo is going to be a reprint of a card that is not currently in Modern, so I'm really excited to see what they choose for the buy-a-box promo to get people hyped to buy this, presumably like $200 box of Magic cards. So
yeah, I you know what I can tell you, Seth? Modern is about to change. Do you think they tested the new Mulligan rule with this brand new set with 250 new cards into Modern? Like, I'm gonna say they did not test all the permutations of this, so it'll be interesting to see what trumps what, right? Like, if they print more combo pieces in here, or if it's the opposite, they print more combo hate to keep that in check, and given that they knew about the new Mulligan. So it'll be interesting.
It's also a little curious that this set is releasing shortly after the Modern Pro Tour. The set comes out in June. The Modern Pro Tour is the end of April, so like a month before. So that kind of, I don't know what to make of that. Maybe they want to make sure this Mulligan rule is tested without the impact of this new set. Maybe the next Paper Pro Tour will also be Modern and we get 2 in a row to show off these new cards. But it does seem a little strange to have the set release right after the Modern Pro Tour when we're used to just getting 1 a year. So I'll be interested to see if that changes anything. Maybe the Core Set 2020 Paper Mythic Championship is also going to be Modern to show off this set.
Yeah.
Anyway, Richard, why don't you tell us, we got 2 cards, very early spoilers. Spoiler season doesn't actually start until after War of the Spark, so we got a ways to go. I believe May will be getting official spoilers. Why don't you tell us, though, about our couple of sneak peek preview cards we got a couple days ago?
All right. First up, we have a Planeswalker. A Planeswalker that we've known about since like the beginning of Magic. Sarah the Benevolent. 2 white. So finally, the Sarah from Sarah's Angel, or like Seth would like to say, Sierra the Benevolent. 4 starting loyalty. +2, creatures you control with flying get +1/+1 until end of turn. -3, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. -6, you get an emblem with, if you control a creature, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead.
So from a modern perspective, I think this card is kind of okay. From a flavor perspective, it's awesome. We've never had a Sierra or Sarah Planeswalker before, so I think it's really cool from a flavor perspective. As far as power level, it seems, I don't know. I'm not high on this card being a modern staple. It does do some interesting things in the right deck. Like, if you have a bunch of flyers, like Lingering Souls, the +2 can be a lot of damage. The emblem is actually really scary. Worship that can't be interacted with sounds like it is a pretty worthy payoff, and you get there in 1 turn. Making an actual Sarah Angel, that's not super exciting in a world of Tarmogoyfs and Death Shadows for 4 mana. What do you think, Richard? Is this card better in Modern than I'm giving it credit for? Is this something you're mostly excited to jam in your Commander decks?
I think it has uses in Modern. So as a general purpose card, it's like kind of meh. So it competes with, let's say, Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, and 4 mana Elspeth. And these are basically card advantage cards. So these are cards that like Abzan would play. And the idea is you throw this Planeswalker down, you poop out some creatures, and then your opponent can't keep up 1 for 1. The best thing about Sarah the Benevolent is the ultimate. So it's a 6. And so you need 1+1, and then you can ultimate. That stops all the combo decks. Right? So if you can stabilize long enough, let's say you could Thoughtseize away their turn 3 or 4 win, and then you Sarah the Benevolent, you +1, you minus, they probably can't beat you anymore. +2, sorry. So I see it as like that weird sideboard card where against control decks, like you just pop this down and then there's a Warship and they can't deal with it. So in that sense, I think it's really good. If I was just doing mid-range mirrors, I would just play Gideon.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of where I come down with the card. I think you really want to be able to abuse the ultimate in some way. Like, that seems like the reason to play the card. I can also see an argument if you are heavily in on flyers. Maybe the +2 is more powerful than it looks, being like a one-shot Sarah Aviary or favorable wins type thing. But the Emblem of Worship is incredibly difficult for some decks to beat. And I like that you mentioned control, because I played a lot of Worship. I love Worship blocking people out of the game. And against control, you get down your Worship, you get down the lock, and you feel good about where you're at, but they do have cards that beat it. Like Cryptic Command bouncing your Worship kind of ruins your day. With an Emblem, a lot of the ways that decks can potentially beat Worship are taken off the table, and your opponent needs Vapor Snag or like a loss of life effect like Collective Brutality to actually kill you, because so many of the other answers don't work against an Emblem.
Yeah, and just imagine Lingering Souls plus Emblem. Like, your opponent may have one Abrupt Decay, maybe like a Fatal Push or 2, but they're gonna need actual sweepers if you Lingering Souls into Emblem. And, a Disenchant doesn't get rid of this, right? So it is extremely powerful, and good news, Lingering Souls is the same color as Sarah the Benevolent, so expect that to happen. And just the clock, right? If you have 4 Lingering Souls tokens out and you just plus, oh boy, it's actually a clock to finish the game, right? So I'm hoping she sees some play somewhere, right? But, you do have Gideon and Elspeth to compete with her.
Yeah, I think maybe Spirits is another good option, even as a sideboard card for, like you said, those combo matchups where your opponent can kind of just race you, and then plus you're getting in a lot of extra damage. So I think there's a chance. It takes a specific deck, though. It's not the Thoughtseize you were talking about. It's more of the power-up specific archetypes, but even more than that, because I'm not exactly sure what those specific archetypes are at the moment.
Yeah. And I'm ready to get my revised Sarah Angels and then like alter them into a token and then just -3 and plop this down. I feel the -3 will be like decent. I feel like you will kill people with that -3, right? Like, it's still decent. Yeah, it gets Fatal Push, but I would like a 4 mana Sarah Angel that has more value over time is not the end of the world.
Yeah. It's not bad. I think it's a fine ability, and you will kill people with it sometimes, but I don't think you play Sarah the Benevolent for the make a Sarah Angel. You play it to Worship block, or maybe to force through a lot of damage, and that's just kind of like the bonus ability that sometimes it'll be what you need to do.
Yeah. But I do think this will cause problems. Like, I don't know. It's just why imagine like a Blood Moon emblem, right? Like you have like the super problematic card, and now you just give it to an emblem on a Planeswalker after 2 turns. Like, oh boy, right? Like, good luck.
So tinfoil hat time. My theory is the emblem isn't as good as it looks because in War of the Spark, we are going to see, along with a lot of Planeswalkers, our first ways to interact with emblems.
No.
I don't have any information. That's just a tinfoil hat speculation type thing, but that's my guess, is that's going to be part of the gimmick of the set, is you can actually interact with emblems to counteract the presumably ton of Planeswalkers that are going to be in the set.
That is a good theory, and I think you're right. Just like, how Exile was like, it's not the graveyard because you can't interact with it. And then they decided to print like all these cards that could interact with Exile, such that Exile is basically a graveyard at this point. I think you're right. I think you'll have like a disenchant or something that can hit emblems.
Yeah. And that would make it would still be really good, because who in Modern is going to play Emblem 8? It seems like a very niche effect, but that would make it make a little more sense if they're going to keep printing all these Planeswalkers with really powerful emblem abilities.
Yeah, I'd imagine a Stifle will come too in this Modern set, like an actual good Stifle. I imagine that will be happening.
Maybe it's just like literal Stifle. Yeah. I think literal Stifle is probably safe for Modern.
But that's like Stone Rain, Seth. Are you sure we want 1 mana Stone Rain?
It will be hilarious because Modern players are not used to playing around Stifle in the way that Legacy players are. So you're going to be able to get people really good for the first, if it is in the set, for the first couple of weeks or months after the set comes out. Oh man, you're going to wreck people with Stifle.
Can you imagine if they reprinted Brainstorm Wasteland Stifle into Modern? Yes.
I mean, then it would just be Legacy.
Yes, without the dual lands. That's it, right? I would totally take that format, right? Like, remove the reserve list. That's basically reserve list free. Right? Legacy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just throw a Daze in there for good measure. Oh, yes. It's happening, Seth. All right. Okay, why is it happening? Why are we talking such ridiculous things, Seth? Because there's this ridiculous card that they revealed, Cabal Therapist. It's a creature, a single black mana. It's a 1/1 creature horror, menace. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, choose a non-land card name, then target player reveals their hand and discards all cards with that name.
This card's pretty good. On the live stream, they said this is maybe in the top 10 cards in the set, but it's not like the best card in the set. So if this is maybe in the top 10, there's some busted stuff in Modern Horizons. And I think this card itself is really good. I've heard people arguing against it because it doesn't do anything right away. You gotta wait a turn, but it's a 1-drop. It's not like you're paying 5 mana for a creature you need to untap with. It's a 1-drop. So it's really easy to actually get on the battlefield. Even if your opponent immediately kills it, you're at least breaking even in mana, even if they have to bolt or fatal push it. And if it sits on the battlefield, this just wrecks some decks with, you have Bloodghast and Lingering Souls in so many ways to just have this every turn Cabal therapy where you're gonna just strip your opponent's hand of every meaningful thing, because on the second activation, you already know your opponent's hand from the first activation. So I feel like this is a card that has a ton of potential, and it just naturally slots into pre-existing decks. It already seems good in like Young Pyromancer, Mardu style decks. It seems like it works in black-white tokens really easily. Some sort of weird sacrifice, Bloodghast, Aristocrats style. So there are shells that you can just slot this into. I think this card is pretty busted. What do you think, Richard?
So I think we're imagining that it's a lot better than it is, but it's still really good. So if you play this on turn 1, right, you untap, you need to sacrifice it immediately if you want a Cabal Therapy, because you don't have a chance to play something unless you somehow flash in a creature. So that's awkward, right? But so what you would ideally do is Cabal Therapist and then Thoughtseize 1-drop and then the next turn sack that creature and then just keep sacking creatures. And the thing about Cabal Therapy is it gets infinitely better, on the second and third activations. Cause the first one is kind of blind. Second one, you know exactly what's in their hand. Right. So, it is super good if you get it going. And basically what that means is if you're a combo deck, you have this tiny window to like go off, before your hand is just annihilated, right? It's just like a repeatable Thoughtseize every single turn. And it's actually sometimes better than Thoughtseize, right? Like, the tilting blind name and you discard 2 cards can happen too. So I think it's really good. The only thing that could make it better if it was a zombie. Can you imagine like cycling grave crawlers to this
Grave
thing?
crawlers.
Oh boy.
My God.
Oh boy. But this is like a young Pyromancer deck. Like if you don't win immediately, like you're not going to have a hand anymore, right? Like good luck, right? So Wizards is, I don't know, Wizards wants you to jund them out, man. Like you want to play off the top of your deck, and I don't know, this is a weird card. Just a one-shot therapy is good enough, right? But the fact that you can repeat it is kind of scary.
The other thing that I didn't really pick up on right away is how this has some potential to enable some combo decks because, remember, you choose a target player. So while most of the time you want to target your opponent, you can target yourself with this. So in a deck like a Goryo's Vengeance Reanimator Shell, this is another Faithless Looting almost, where you can play this on turn 1, sack it on turn 2, discard your Emrakul with the trigger on the stack, and reanimate it and win the game or whatever, your Grizzlebrand or whatever. So you can do some tricky things targeting yourself to get specific cards in the graveyard, or like Dredge. In Dredge, you have all these creatures that you want in the graveyard anyway, and you can sacrifice a Bloodghast that's coming back, or a Stinkweed Imp that you want to dredge with, and then get it back, or a Narcomoeba, and then just keep stripping your opponent's hand for free, essentially. So I think there's some cool stuff you can do targeting yourself in specific decks as well.
Yep. And you can also just combo with Sarah the Benevolent. You just like
you make
emblem
your 4/4 and sack it.
No. You emblem, and then you're
okay.
like, Cabal Therapist. No, I won't therapy you. I'll just keep it as a 1/1 to keep my warship going. Right?
So this has to be worse than actual therapy, though, right? Like, if you were going to compare the 2 cards, worse or better?
I don't know. It's a clock. It's repeatable. So a therapy caps out at like 2 therapies. This is like infinite therapy. So I don't know. I mean, therapy probably is better in general, but I feel like there are cases where this thing has to be better.
Yeah, like Bitter Blossom.
Yeah, or just Lingering Souls or whatever, right? Just anything, right? Yeah. Just like you have an endless stream of disruption, and if you do, your Snapcaster beatdowns are actually going to win the game, right? Like, if your combo deck opponent is off the top decking, they're kind of screwed. So I actually really like this. And at worst, this is like 1/1 menace. You can just chip in there for some damage. Right? Yeah,
like it adds up. I do like that it's a little bit restricted. Like, I don't think you could play this in your Jund deck because you don't want to be sacrificing your stuff. Like, could you play this in Jund, Richard? Is just like sacking this to therapy once enough? Or do you need like those disposable creatures to really make it worth slotting into your deck?
I don't know. So you obviously don't want to play this in the Sack of Tarmogoyf, right? But being a creature has its advantages. You can get it back with Liliana the Last Hope, Kolaghan's Command. You could... What's that tutor for a creature?
Traverse.
Yeah, you could traverse for it. Like, there are advantages to being a creature. So I don't know, right? But I mean, I'd probably just play Thoughtseize over this. But I think in Abzan or something, this is like more likely, where you have Lingering Souls to throw away and things like that. Gideon tokens.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if it proved to be powerful enough, you could slot Bitter Blossom into your Jund deck. We've seen that at times in the past. Like, you could, if you found it to be so good that you needed to take advantage of it, you could probably, like, change your deck a bit to make it better or more practical.
Yeah. And it works really well with Thoughtseize, right? Like, everyone knows the best therapy is one that is preceded by a Gitaxian Probe, right? But a turn 1 Thoughtseize does the same thing. You see their exact hand, and you're like, nice 3 cryptic commands. Cabal Therapist naming cryptic command, and like the game is over, right? So, yeah, I think this will slot really well into Disruption, and I feel like all of these cards here are to stop the menace of combo decks, right? Like they're all like super anti-combos.
I hope that that's what the plan for the set is. Like, I'm hoping that the idea isn't to support combos, but to support fair decks and slow down combos. And we've only seen 2 cards, but I'm hopeful that that's where the set is heading. I gotta ask you, at the live stream, Blake talked about wanting to show off a blue card, but then they're like, no, you can't show off the best card in the set already. What do you think a blue reprint that would be the best card in this set could be?
Preordain. Well, Brainstorm would be the answer, but do you think they'd be so crazy as to unleash Brainstorm?
Man, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe if they want Modern to literally become Legacy, I guess that is how you can do it. If you have Brainstorm and Fetches, it would feel exactly like Legacy. What about like Force? Is Force completely off the table? Like, I expect Counterspell. I don't know if Counterspell would count as the best card in the set, though. Is Force of Will just...
I don't know. I don't like Force.
Yeah.
Force is like super bad. Like, I don't know. It's like the card you sideboard out the most. I feel maybe it is. Maybe you could consider it the best card, but it just makes things weird. I'd rather put a Brainstorm in the format. At least it's fun. Like getting Force of Will with like no counterplay, everyone have to play blue is like super weird.
What about Days? I actually think I do not want Days in the format. I'm more scared of that than like any other counter spell.
Days is too good. I don't know. I feel like it'd be weird to have one of these free counters without the other. Because your way to combat a counterspell is to daze them. Or to like, I don't know, it's weird. But I feel like they should just reprint all this stuff into Modern. Why not? Who cares?
So since we're talking about reprinting stuff into Modern, is there anything you really are hoping for or expecting reprint-wise? Obviously, we can't guess the new cards. We'll see what they are. Hopefully they're sweet. They look sweet so far. But reprint-wise, what do you want / expect in this set?
Swords. The Plowshares.
Ooh.
Not Feast of Famine.
Okay.
Like, we have Path to Exile, we have Fatal Push, we have Assassin's Trophy. It's time to unleash Swords to Plowshares. It's like not that OP. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe if you have a combination of 4 Path, 4 Swords, or 4 Swords, 4 Fatal Pushes, it becomes ridiculous to play creature deck. But looking at the options we have today, it's not that much stronger.
I don't think Swords is too good. What do you think about Baleful Strix? That's a card that I thought was extremely likely, and then I wrote an article about it, and a lot of people were like, no, that would ruin the format, and I was like, really? Baleful Strix? That's the card that's going to ruin the format? What is your take on Baleful Strix?
I do not want to see a Baleful Strix on the battlefield. I think it ruins any fair deck. Like, the amount of crap you need to go through to get rid of that Baleful Strix, right? Like, and for some reason, you get a card off of this. Like, if you want this value, then play Wall of Omens.
It's a 1/1 for 2. How can that ruin the...
Okay, if you remove the Death Touch part of it, then fine, yes. Right? Yeah, but...
you're just a Tarmogoyf player that doesn't want to slam your Goyfs into my 1/1 with Death Touch.
Anything. Death Shadow, like, literal any clock gets stopped right there, and you need to play removal, which is otherwise dead. Right? Because typically the decks that play this are control or combo decks, so you don't want your removal against them. So what you're really hoping for is like a Colligan's Command or something, but like that's super slow. So I do not want to see Baleful Strix. Like, you might as well just reprint True Name Nemesis at this point, right? Like,
no. I think Flusterstorm is probably one of my best bets for showing up in the set.
That's not like, Modern legal? Huh.
It is not Modern legal. Huh. And it seems like the kind of card that helps fight the unfair decks to some extent. What do you think about Maze of Ith? I was trying to go over the lands. The big lands, Maze of Ith, Port, Wasteland are some of the biggest ones. Also Caracas, I guess. Do you think any of those?
If you print those, then you must bring Wasteland into the format. If they give you a Maze of Ith without a Wasteland, like, that is ridiculous, right? Like, you want to Ghost Quarter me, right? You want to spend 3 mana to Field of Ruin me? Like, oh boy, right? Like, oh, you need Wasteland. Like, can you imagine if someone just plops down a Maze of Ith on turn 1 and you're a creature deck? You're like, okay. Sure. Right? You need a Wasteland.
What do you think about Wasteland?
I'm down.
Are you? I thought that was one of the most unlikely cards to be reprinted, but I've seen a lot of people thinking that it would be good. So what is your justification for Wasteland in Modern?
Everyone has Wasteland, so what is bad about this?
My concern is it leads to some non-games, which are not particularly fun. Like, when you hear Wasteland, you think, oh, that's good. I can deal with their Tron land. But really, what you don't consider is, oh, they're going to play a Delver.
Yeah, what's going to happen is turn 1 Delver.
And I never get to do anything.
Turn 2 Wasteland you with Spell Pierce up and let's go, right? But
yeah.
I don't know. We have enough 1-mana removal now. You can bolt, you can push. There's no daze, right? The backbreaker is they Wasteland you and their daze is always online. But
or you try to Wasteland them and they pick up their land with daze. Oh.
Yeah, that's why you don't cast a spell and in response wasteland them. You make sure the stack is clear. But I think if you're worried about that, then you cannot print Stifle.
I guess that's true. Stifle is sort of similar. I'm really hoping we get some like Pernicious Deeds, Council's Judgment, like those type of utility spells. I think would be sweet.
We don't even
also,
need them
maybe
though.
Some like commander
There's
stuff.
nothing hard to get rid of. You need them for like True Name Nemesis, right? But we don't have True Name Nemesis, so it's fine.
Oh, they're just sweet cards though. Sweet and nostalgic. Like Deeds, I just love Deeds for some reason.
Toxic Deluge could be a thing, maybe.
I think that could be a good one. I think that's actually a good one. Some people have been going with they're going to put Stoneforge in the set. I don't know how that works with all the cards are new to Modern. Technically, Stoneforge has never been in Modern because it's been banned.
Oh, I mean, given the power level of these cards, like I don't care about Stoneforge anymore. Like it would totally fit in, given that the power level that they're pushing.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty safe. Well, it's definitely going to be exciting. I am so hyped for this, and I don't know. It's a crazy time in Modern between the Mulligan rule and then also this new set. Modern is going through a upheaval of sorts, especially if that Mulligan rule becomes the rule.
I feel like Wasteland is coming, Seth. I feel like this could be it. I never thought about it, but this could be like, here's Legacy 2.0. We're done with Legacy. This was reserve list free Legacy called Modern with Modern Horizons. And they just give us all the goodies. Preordain. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
One more question before we move on. Do you think that this set increases the likelihood of something like Commander decks being Modern legal or other supplemental products? Like now that the dam has been broken, are we going to see this become the new norm, or is this just a special one-time thing and we'll never see it again?
I think it's a one-time thing. I think they want to be free to print multiplayer cards without the pesky tournament players abusing them. You know what I mean? Like there'll be cards like True Name Nemesis that's perfectly reasonable in Commander, but in 1v1 it's like a little oppressive. So I feel like they want to be able to protect themselves from that.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. It seems like it's a lot more work for them. Yeah. If they were going to make all the supplemental products, then they would have to test them, at least to some extent, you would think, in Modern. And I don't know if they, even with the new play design team, I don't know if they want to put the man hours into it. Even though I think if executed well, it could be sweet, but it does seem like it would take a lot more work.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other Modern Horizons thought, Richard, before we check in on GP action real quick before Fish Mail?
Legacy is coming. It's Legacy. This power level just pumps it up.
Are you excited? Like, does this make you more excited for Modern than you were before the announcement?
Oh yeah. Clearly you're getting 250 cards roughly into Modern. So the format will definitely change.
Also makes me feel a little better about Modern. I was a little worried with Standard Plus and Arena, and just the fact that they're printing this Modern set makes me feel a little bit better about the future of the format moving forward. Does that change your not too much?
Well, if I see sudden influx of Modern events and Modern coverage, then maybe, but I feel like we're just going to see the same old push of Arena and Standard and Mythic Invitational stuff. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if this revives Moto. Because if you want to play all these new cards, like there's only one place, which is Magic Online. Well, and in paper, but I meant digitally.
I mean, it's got to be a good thing for Magic Online at least. So, well, we'll see.
Or maybe
we'll see
it's the release of like Vintage Masters or something. Where or what are those Magic Online sets like the ME4 and ME3
Masters Edition? Yeah.
Like we get plenty of those on Magic Online, but people aren't super hype about them.
Well, let's move on and talk a little bit about MagicFest / Grand Prix Los Angeles that happened this weekend. So, two big pieces of news. One is Modern GP, which was also covered. This is one of our GPs that got coverage. And before we get into it, shout out to Channel Fireball. I was extremely impressed with their coverage this weekend. It was really wall-to-wall Magic. Pleasant Kenobi was a floor reporter doing tons of deck techs. It was sweet. They showed so many matches, did some cool stuff with Time Walk. So I really enjoyed how they handled coverage. And they also had this more looser, fun feel where they were kind of like, instead of the Pro Tour super serious, like golf announcer thing, they were telling stories and having fun. And I like watching people have fun playing Magic and talking about Magic. So I found the coverage to be really good. As far as the decks, the Modern GP, pretty unfair. Ended up with a lot of Is It Phoenix, a lot of Dredge. Finals was Is It Phoenix taking down Hardened Scales. I actually think the entire top 8 was Phoenix, Dredge, and Hardened Scales in multiples, along with one Grixis Death Shadow. So, Modern's about to change. What do you think about our current Modern, Richard?
It's Modern. Be prepared to be comboed out by multiple different decks, so you can't really prepare for it and hope you have a good matchup. I don't know. It's Modern before the mulligan. Like, imagine after the mulligan. This will get even better, right? I don't know.
What do you think of the new hotness in the Is It Drake deck, which, if you watch coverage at all... Oh, also there was a Titan Shift. My bad. There was 2 decks that were not those decks. One Titan Shift slipped in as well. What do you think about the Is It Phoenix/Drake deck, which, if you watch coverage, they were all over this being the best deck in the Modern format at the moment, to the point where you got people sideboarding to beat the mirror with like main deck surgical extractions and stuff to get your opponent's Phoenixes. How good is this deck? Is this the new best deck, or are we going to see an adjustment in the metagame and it's going to fall back down like we've seen in the past?
I don't know. It's basically just some kind of like hybrid between Dredge and Splinter Twin. I don't know, man. It's like you kind of just combo people out, but then you can kind of control them and then do stuff later. I feel like if people really cared, like if you just slap down some ley lines or something, like what's this deck going to do? So I feel like if you're ready for it, you should be good. I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, I think the deck is very good. I do think, just looking at this top 8 in general, I think we're to the point where you might want to be considering like main deck graveyard hate. Like, just looking at this top 8, I would be perfectly happy to have like main deck Rest in Peace in this current meta. And it seems like almost unbeatable to like a lot of the top decks. Like, sure, it's not great against like Hardened Scales, but even against like Death Shadow, you're still shutting down Gurmag Anglers and Snapcasters. It's not bad there. So I think that's where I'm at, playing main deck like Relic of Progenitus or Rest in Peace or Ley Lines or something. So I do think the deck is very strong, but Modern's big, and I'm not as particularly worried right now, just because we know this upheaval is coming with this new set. So what is the best deck right now? That is very subject to change in a couple months when we get Modern Horizons.
Yeah, and I feel like you could just play LSV's Pro Tour deck and then just like swap in a couple cards and then go play Modern. And like, it's a pretty good spot to be in if you want to just like test out Modern. It's kind of like if you could play Fish in Legacy and Fish in Modern. So that's pretty interesting. But I do think, will this deck be good with the new mulligan rules? Like, what if I can mulligan into my ley line? Like, what are you going to do about it? Right? Like,
then they get to mulligan into their Faithless Lootings and Drakes. Ugh.
Yeah, but like if they have to mulligan down to 5 cards and I'm Jund and I'm mulligan down to 5 cards, I think I'm more favored, right? Like, I can just go all the way with a single Tarmogoyf. Can you go all the way with like, 3 cards? So I don't know.
What happens if you mull to 5 and don't hit your ley
line? My Tarmogoyf sucks with the ley line on the battlefield, by the way. So I'm really playing Death Shadows, guys. So that my 1 mana 13, 12 or whatever can kill him. But yes.
The other thing I want to mention before we get to Fishmail is they had, for the first time ever, a Mythic Championship / Pro Tour qualifier in Pauper at MagicFest London. Oh my, so many weird words. Thanks, Wizards. The most important thing, in the end, it was Boggles taking down Familiars. I think it's Esper Familiars. Esper Familiars in the finals. So Boggles won the whole thing. The most impressive part is, looking at this metagame, it is insanely diverse. The top 8 is not only all unique decks, 8 different decks, I believe, but they're all very much on different ends of the scales. There's a spells deck, there's a Tortured Existence deck, which is like the Dredge of the format, there's Mono Red Burn, there's a Zombie Tribal deck, there's Boggles, there's Tron, there's Dimir Delver. So the metagame was insanely diverse, and I think that's pretty exciting for the Pauper format moving forward. Like, not only was it featured on camera, they actually covered it. Not only did it qualify someone for a Mythic Championship, it actually really presented itself well on camera. Because my nightmare is going to be, oh, you have like 6 Delver decks and it's miserable and no one cares. But it seems like a huge win for the Pauper format in general this past weekend.
Yeah, being on camera was amazing, and it's something that we never had with WotC coverage. So kudos to Channel Fireball for showcasing that. And you get to see that. I think it means a lot more to Magic in general that you can play with just commons and have a deck that like makes sense and like works, right? Like you're not talking about some weird collection, but these decks are very strong and probably can take on modern decks, right? And probably crush modern decks, depending on which deck you're talking about. So it's actually pretty cool to see kind of these old cards that you could like dig up. They cost kind of less than the new cards, and then you can put together this deck and play. And it's a way to see old cards. And it's funny that you see all your favorite, like you see Tron, right? You can't escape Tron anywhere. You see like graveyard-based decks. You see combo spell decks. You see burn is fine. So it's actually pretty cool and interesting to see that this format is quite diverse and that it's quite easy to get into, especially on Magic Online. Like this is like pennies on Magic Online.
Yeah, it's super cheap online, and it's actually pretty cheap in paper as well. I'm just looking over the metagame, and there's a couple of exceptions, especially like Delver decks that play snow-covered islands for not too much of a reason that get over $100, but essentially you can get basically any deck in the meta for between $50 and $100, which puts it in like our budget Magic price range, except you're buying the literal best decks in the format for that price. And if you never played Pauper, it really does feel like Legacy light almost. Like when you hear all comments, you think, oh, this is going to be like when we did that Pauper Commander Clash and no one can kill each other and it's incredibly boring and it takes hours. But these decks are actually very powerful, and there's a lot of the same synergies, the cantrips, the free counter spells, the powerful burn spells that you have in the Legacy format. So if you've never tried it and you want a way to play something sort of adjacent to Legacy for $50 a deck instead of $5,000 a deck, definitely something to keep in mind if you're interested.
Yeah, and you can brainstorm.
You can. Although brainstorm...
No fetches, though. You're going to have to crack it with an Evolving Wilds. You're going to feel a little bad.
It's kind of funny. A lot of decks go with Preordain and Ponder over Brainstorm for that reason. Although you have like Ash Barrens, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expand, so you can play some weird shuffling lands if you want to. But yeah, it definitely feels very much like Legacy.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Delver deck. What could you be doing? You could turn one Delver, and then you can daze their play. You can brainstorm into your daze, and then you can gush for some reason. Right? Like, forget Legacy. We'll just go straight to Vintage. Right? So, it's pretty good. And yeah, you're going to have to shuffle your brainstorm with Evolving Wilds, but I think the gush makes up for that.
Playing against Pauper Delver is my least favorite. Oh, that deck is so... It's not a ton of fun to play against. It feels like a Legacy Delver deck where they just play Delver and then like daze all your stuff and counterspell all your stuff and you lose without doing anything. Hooray. But I was glad that Delver didn't dominate the top 8. I think there was only one actual Delver deck. So as the MCQ showed, apparently you can compete with the deck, and the format is pretty diverse and apparently in a better place than I thought. I've been not playing much Pauper lately since Gush was part of the format, because on Magic Online there's a lot of Delver decks, but this shows that maybe in paper it's a little bit different, and maybe Gush is not actually that big of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're getting to that time, Richard. Unless you have anything else about MagicFest, fish mail, perhaps?
Yeah, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Desi Nohei, what 5 Eternal cards do you want to see reprinted in Modern Horizons? So we discussed this. Counterspell, Innocent Blood, Planar Void, Mother of Runes, Necropotence.
Planar Void?
What is Planar Void?
I think that's like a black rest in peace.
Wait, what? This exists?
1 black mana. Whenever a card is put into a graveyard, remove. Oh, it's a 1 mana black rest.
Why haven't we been playing this on Commander Clash?
Yeah, it gets all graveyards too.
Wait, what? What? How come I've never seen this in Legacy? What happened?
Yeah, that card actually seems really good. I've never played it either. That is a really good choice, whoever sent that in.
Okay, Necropotence probably no.
No, yeah, Necro's not.
How about Mom? How about Mother Runes?
I am very anti-Mother. I don't want stuff that powers up humans more, and I think Mom does that pretty directly. I want Baleful Strix. That's very high on my list. Give me my Baleful Strix. I want to Tezzeret people. Come on, Wizards.
I think Counterspell is useless. I mean, it's fine, but it's not going to break the format. It's not that good.
I expect it just because it's not that good. Factor Fiction? I would like Factor Fiction. It's 4 mana.
I think that's fine.
Safe.
It's probably fine. It's like too slow.
Pernicious Deeds. I really want Pernicious Deeds. Oh, Vindicate. I want Vindicate. I want to blow up someone's land for 3 mana.
I actually think Vindicate
and
is
anything
fine.
Else. That would.
We have Assassin's Trophy, right? Like, you can destroy people's lands now anyway, so I think Vindicate is fine.
How about Sinkhole?
Sinkhole is probably not okay. But they could, and they can just give you Wasteland. I'm fine with Wasteland. How about Port? Do you think Port could be a thing?
I think it's safer than Wasteland, but I think it's still obnoxious to play against.
Like, can you, just imagine, like, turn 1 Vial into Thalia into Port. Like, it's still pretty obnoxious even without a Wasteland, right?
Yeah. One thing I'm really curious about is if we see some tribal strategies powered up. There's like
humans,
some sweet, not humans, like Goblin Ringleader or Matron would be interesting.
Oh, that would be so good.
There's some sweet elves that are not in the format, like Wirewood Symbio or some of like the legacy elves pieces. So it'd be interesting to see if we get any straight up tribal support from legacy cards.
What about like Pox?
Ooh.
Smallpox. Wait, smallpox is legal, isn't it?
We have smallpox.
So you need like
real
real
pox.
Pox.
Full pox. I don't think that's reserve list. Oh, Pox is a cool card. I like death clouding people, so I would, and it's triple black. It takes a bit of a requirement.
Yeah,
let's Pox it.
All right, Leo 5873. If you guys had personality tokens like the SCG ones, what would your token be?
Oh, so do you actually like choose a creature type and stuff? I've tried to think of what the SCG ones are.
Do they have Kithkin tokens? Does anything make Kithkin tokens?
There are Kithkin tokens.
Or is it like soldier token? I forgot. I'll take a Kithkin token then.
That's pretty fitting.
If not, I'll take a Kobold. Kobold tokens are cool.
I don't know what I would take. Like, the stuff that I like doesn't really... There's no Blood Moon tokens or Panharmonicon tokens. Maybe, like, a giant? Giants have beard. Maybe I'd go to some sort of bearded giant. I'm trying to think what else has
there been a giant
beards?
Token? What makes a giant token? Is it just like a hill giant? Like, what is it?
Giant. There's gotta be... Oh, giant baiting makes a token.
Interesting.
There we go. Let's go with that.
All right, Hash Brown Monster. With the announcement of Modern Horizons reprinting non-modern cards into Modern, is this just another sign that Legacy is being phased out by Wizards?
Yes, I think that is... I mean, it's been being phased... At this point, I think it's been phased out.
Yeah,
as far as Wizards is concerned. It's not even happening anymore, it's done. Yeah.
Variant Human. Would you guys consider yourself introverts or extroverts?
I guess I'm probably an extrovert, I guess.
I'm totally an introvert. No questions. No questions about this one. Okay. Oh, everyone's just on the Modern Horizons train. Okay, Seth, we got some more. A little cheeky. Which of the following, if any, would be too good for Modern? Enlightened Tutor, Arcane Denial, Patron Wizard, Fluctuator.
What was the first one? That was the one that most immediately felt too good to me.
Enlightened Tutor.
I think Enlightened Tutor...
Would you like to tutor up a rest in peace?
I think the tutor cycle might be too good. So I'm gonna nix Enlightened Tutor. Fluctuator is dangerous, but in a janky sort of way where I don't know if cycling is actually going to break the format, so it's probably okay just because cycling isn't a real deck. Patron Wizard, it might not work just because it's obnoxious, as we saw in Commander Clash, but I don't think it's like too powerful. Yeah, I think the rest of them are fine. What do you think, Richard?
I think they're fine. I don't think Enlightened Tutor. Enlightened Tutor is probably too good though.
That's
But you're down a card
of.
though. But I mean, I don't know. If you're gonna put Enlightened Tutor, just put Vampiric Tutor in the format. Like, why not? How about Vampiric Tutor? What if you just go like all the way and you're like, whatever?
I mean, Demonic Tutor, that's not reserve list.
Oh, Demonic Tutor.
That would be so broken. The combos would be so consistent. We do not want that.
What about Dark Ritual?
Oh my.
It's not red. It's not red. I mean, the reason we're more scared of red rituals, right? Because you can pass in flames them.
Oh boy. No,
Manamorphose.
I guess
Dark Ritual. No.
if we could go back to the world of like Dark Ritual Hypnotic Spectre, that would be okay. But I don't think Modern is a place where that's what people would do with Dark Ritual. They're not going to be like, turn 1 Hypnotic Spectre, go. They're just going to combo you off somehow.
And then you daze them and you're like, good job. Sometimes I get greedy and they like Dark Ritual. I'm like, I'll just counter the thing they put down, and they like, thought sees me. I'm like, crap. I'm like, shouldn't have did that.
I've done that too.
Just like people say, like, never counter the tutor. Just counter what they bring down. Like, no. They're tutoring for a wasteland. Like, you can't counter it. Like, counter the tutor. All these things you learned. Captain WoW 26. What is the difference between soft taco and a burrito?
I am not up on my
It's the filling.
Technicalities.
It's the filling. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, burritos, you typically have rice or something in it. Like, you don't have rice in a soft taco.
So the rice is that's what. But what if you put rice in a soft taco, it would be a burrito then?
I would think so.
Okay.
Well, like you typically don't put like beans and stuff in a taco, right? That's typically something you put in a burrito. So I feel like it's the filling that makes it, right? And then I guess you could put rice in a taco, but then it's too small. It doesn't make any sense anymore.
Okay, I'll go with that.
I am not a taco expert, so someone will correct me. Okay. This is just like the total, let's speculate everything in Legacy into Modern. MTG coffee tokens. How about Hymn to Torok?
No.
Yeah, that's probably too good. Also, Baleful Strix.
Yes.
Mr. MTG coffee tokens agrees with you. Force of Will.
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that's the best card in the set, blue card, but it very well could not be as well.
Oh, that would just make everyone have to play blue.
Yep.
Nope. All right. Free Jazz. If you played a tier 1 modern vintage deck as a competitive EDH deck, gave them both 30 life and didn't allow sideboarding, who would win? With an extra 10 life, would EDH win? So a modern / vintage. Those are two very different decks, by the way, versus a competitive EDH deck.
I think that the vintage deck would very likely win. The modern deck, that's a little more questionable.
I think modern will win. I think the competitive EDH deck will have high variance, but over time, like, the modern deck will just win more. Like, if you draw your Soul Ring or something, like, yeah, okay, cool, right? But if you don't, then, like, are you gonna be able to consistently beat a modern deck?
Probably not. Probably too inconsistent. Like, I think that probably the CEDH deck could win either of those matchups, but you're right. Over the long haul, the consistency of having 4 of your best cards is gonna probably win out for the constructed decks.
Yeah, maybe we should try it. It's actually... Okay. And it also depends. Like, if your modern deck is Jund, you're not gonna win. Oh, but we did mention tier 1 though, so... The Mike Arnold. Since we know about Modern Horizons, what are the chances we get some kind of Arena Horizon set for when Arena Modern is born?
I mean, it could happen. Although, it seems a lot harder based on the small card pool. Cards that are okay in Modern would be super busted if your format is basically current standard.
Yeah. I feel like what they'll do is they'll make Arena Horizons to seed their standard plus format, to make sure it doesn't just look like standard, right? So you'll probably get one set of like some collection of the greatest hits they feel should be in this format, and then that'll be the starting point of your format to make it not just look like you played your standard deck from like a month ago.
That would be sweet. I would like that, I think.
Yeah.
That would make me more excited for the format.
Like, it's basically what Moto did with the Master sets, right? They're like, oh, I'm not making the last 5 years of Magic cards. We'll just take the best ones and make them into the Masters 1, 2, 3, 4 set. And then that pretty much over time gave you kind of the coverage of the super old sets.
Yeah. No, that's true. And at this point, like, they did eventually get basically every playable card on there with that method, so maybe that's what they'd use for Arena.
Yes, but when I build a commander deck and I try to get some Fallen Empires cards, sometimes they're not covered because of this master set issue. All right, so that's all of our fish mail for this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 213 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. And one more time, thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. They got a new course, The Art of Sideboarding with Seth Manfield. First 200 people who buy the course with the code SIDEBOARDING get 15% off. So thank you again to them. Anyway, that's all for this week. We will be back next week to talk about whatever's going on in Magic. Until then, this is the crew signing out.